All right, Scott Lucas is a professor of international politics at Birmingham University, and he joins us now live from Birmingham for more on this story. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on the program. Now, I'm going to get your analysis on if relations will repair between the U.S. and Cuba in a bit, but first, I want to get some context on the story. What made the U.S. think that there were foreign powers causing this outbreak among U.S. officials in Cuba?
Well, in 2016, there were a wave of U.S. officials in Cuba that fell ill in their homes or in their hotel rooms. They were suffering debilitating headaches. Think about migraines, for example. They were suffering dizziness, and they were reporting that they were hearing a scraping noise, sort of like metal being dragged across the floor. And, that was the possibility, and I must stress possibility, that this just simply wasn't, a migraine, for example, but that this was some type of what's called a directed energy attack, which affects the brain, which affects the ability basically to stand upright, the ability, and you feel pain in your head. So that has been investigated, and it has not been resolved to this day, as you noted. The CIA report, and I must stress it's an interim report, the final report is expected next month, has said that most of the cases do not appear to be a directed energy attack, but they still cannot find an explanation for a case in the double digits. Now, that's between 10 and 100 cases. But the diplomatic effect of this incident was that the Trump administration, whether it was actually acting on what it thought was evidence or using it as a pretext, downgraded relations with Cuba in 2017. And as you noted, it shut down most embassy and consular services.
So do you think efforts to repair ties will have a positive outcome, or will the U.S. brush off Cuba's request?
Well, I think that depends on just a lot of moving pieces right now, both in Havana and in Washington. Certainly, it's clear from what the Cuban Foreign Ministry said is that it's ready for the embassies to be reopened fully, for consular services such as the provision of visas to be reopened. It would like to get back to the 2016 agreement with Barack Obama, which tried to develop economic and tourist ties. But in Washington, the issue simply right now is, well, two things. One is there's a lot on the Biden administration's plate. You might think about Ukraine. You might think about the question of relations with China. You might think, for example, about a lot of domestic issues, including Republican obstruction of almost all their legislation. But secondly, there's a very big Cuba lobby in the United States. And by Cuba lobby, I mean those who are opposed to any type of relations with Cuba. And so politically, and there are always politics in this, the Biden administration is probably going to calibrate what type of domestic cost it would suffer if it moves too fast on restoring relations with Havana.
Right, and Havana made the first move here saying, hey, let's restore diplomatic relations. So how exactly has Cuba been affected from severed relations with the U.S.?
Well, politically, of course, it isolates Cuba to an extent in terms of direct relations with the United States, limits it a bit in the hemisphere, but most importantly, it's economic. I mean, I got to be honest with you. This is a country which has withstood a U.S. embargo since 1959. So we're now talking about, 63 years. It's continued to have the economy tick over, but it is an economy which is very much stretched, which is very much trying to subsist. It would be a major boost if it could increase trade with the United States, and immediately if it could increase tourism with the United States. And the Trump move in 2017 limited those possibilities. Cuba wants to get back on the footing where it sees the potential for economic cooperation and interaction with the U.S., even if there continue to be political differences.
Professor Scott Lucas, thank you so much for sparing us your time. We really appreciate it.